the UK.
Good morning, Kurt. Yes, it's raining. I think that's usually you'll hear me say that most times, but it really feels like it's raining in more than just rain right now in London. So there we go.
Well, they're not letting you get out in the rain, are they? You're abiding by the global mandates now, aren't you?
I'm abiding by the mandates as they've been laid down to people of my generation. So everything apart from the golf club. So as long as they allow me to go and play golf, then I'll ride out any of these waves socially anyway. I hear they
Well,
closed the beaches in Florida, Kurt. It must be bad.
well, that's the rumor I heard this morning. I talked to someone. I don't know if it's all of them, but the younger generation is not complying. They are, I guess they feel invincible right now, and they've got that youthful energy in them, but it's spring break season over here, and they are not distancing socially. They're hugging and kissing and swimming together, and I think Florida, certain areas just decided they had no choice.
I think that to the millennials, this may be the answer of how they get on the housing market in the UK. If they can actually see off the top generation and remove the social care issue at the same time, I think some of them see it as a potential win-win.
Well, I guess you're getting the same things I am. And you mentioned golf just a minute ago. That's my choice of therapy right now too, to get outside. But we're getting emails from everybody you've ever bought anything from you. Everybody has a COVID-19 policy that they're stating. And our golf club just sent us one yesterday and says, we're open, but we're going to be socially responsible here at the golf course.
Absolutely.
And they said, do not touch the flag. No one is allowed to touch the flag. Leave it in.
Okay. That's very American.
Yes. If your playing partner sets down his golf club, require him to pick it up. Do not pick it up for him.
Okay.
So golf is one sport where we really can social distance and honor the rules. So it's fun.
I think what happens, Kurt, is gentlemen of our age, shall we say, golf is one of the last sports left that we can compete and exercise in when our body is decayed from years of playing combat sport when we were younger. That's certainly my experience anyway. I don't know about you.
Well, yeah. I mean, you don't have to touch. But the funny thing is, this whole awareness of the virus and wash your hands. My hands are kind of raw, but I used to play golf when I was younger, and your golf ball get dirty and you just lick it and clean it off. You didn't think anything about it. It was just like, and all of a sudden now the chemicals on the golf course and all that. I haven't licked my golf ball in a long time, but we become heightened in our awareness of how we can spread things.
Absolutely.
But,
yeah.
But I think it's interesting that you're, I don't know, however far away you are, 5,000 or 6,000 miles away from me, and we're good friends, and we're able to be right here on the screen just yesterday. I mean, I think you and I had just a time of joy in the midst of this sequestering, just chatting. And it's really, even when we're sequestered like this, it's still really about relationships. Don't you think, Steve?
Absolutely. We had I think kind of our company, I don't know about yours, we really started moving towards digital remote stuff probably 7 years ago. And we have an adage which says FaceTime without FaceTime doesn't work.
Yeah.
But it's amazing how you can sustain relationships where you've had meaningful FaceTime with that individual, i.e. proximity. And we found actually our rule of thumb was this, is we always recommend to organizations every quarter is optimum for FaceTime.
Yes.
You can get away with every 6 months, particularly if you're running global organizations. Anything more than that, and the relationship, however much video you use, doesn't work the same way. But it's really interesting for those of us who've been used to proximity and people in the office or whatever it is, thinking, how will we cope? What you'll find is actually using video, people will cope a lot better than they think right now, because you still look like Curt Beavers. Obviously, you've got some nice filter on, which makes you look younger than you really are. If you're a true American, and you've obviously, but fundamentally, we can talk like this, and actually, we'll see each other in, when they let us back out again. But actually, we can go a long time without feeling any relational disconnection because we've had depth relationship in the past. So that might just be an encouragement for people listening, is thinking, oh my goodness, will they forget who I am? You'll be amazed. The digital world is very, very good. We found up to about 6 months. So that should last us through, hopefully.
And the thing too is a lot of people, I don't think, are used to using the digital world in the way we're talking about. I think of when I'm at home and I'm sequestered, so to speak, and I've gone through and I've binge watched a few TV series, and that can get you excited for a little while. Then your back hurts from sitting in the chair in the same spot, and you figure out you're also binge eating while you're binge watching, and that's not a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the first things I thought of was when I called you the other day, for me to dig back into the 5 voices, to dig back into things that are going to build me up instead of just let me waste time.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit used to, as are you, working from home, because, working from home, it was actually when I got out of college and saw that I didn't like the cubicle, the computer, and the commute, working from home actually became a dream for me. And it's really interesting right now how many people are feeling like they're caged up versus being excited about making their home their hub and not just their cave.
Yeah, no. I mean, it is a mindset shift, though. And I think for people who love routine, particularly the disruption to routine, you and I are both entrepreneurs, pioneer connectors in our world. So we love variety. We hate standard operating procedures. And we love the fact that it's different. There's a new challenge, a new adventure. And actually, I love working from home. I genuinely love working from home because it means that actually I'm with the kids when they come home. I've got freedom. Helen and I get time. And people come to me. So in that sense, that's a lot easier. Obviously, you travel over to the US, but I think for those who are adjusting, it's going to be harder in the beginning because people have got used to when are we working, when are we not working, particularly for those who are still clinging on to the old industrial day, which went 9 till 6 and then you came home. Whereas the digital day is 24/7, and you actually decide, when am I going to exercise, when am I going to eat, when am I going to play, rest, work, and you can actually fit it in all the way around. The big problem happens when people are trying to do an industrial day and a digital day at the same time. That's where they burn out because they go to work all day and then they try and end up having to work in the evening as well. So this is going to force, I think, a massive acceleration into the digital reality, which was coming anyway. And we may come out of this actually with a completely different look at how work happens, or at least greater flexibility. And that's only going to play into the millennial Gen Z generation, who what they crave most is the freedom to work when they want, where they want, and be measured against outcome rather than time served. That's another, I don't know whether you notice that in your world. I know we talk about this with your business and what we do.
When one of the first questions I asked you yesterday, that was what you just said was an amazing trigger back in my mind. I said, I asked you, I called you and we were talking, and I wanted your relationship and your voice in my head. I missed you and we just needed to connect, but it was just so much better than a TV show. And I said, Steve, what can we be doing now so that when we come out of this thing, whether it's weeks or months, and we're all hearing different numbers out there of when the true exit's going to be. But if people really felt like they could be doing some things now so that when this comes to an end, the light at the end of the tunnel, how can we be better because we were sequestered instead of just, we don't want to just cope. We want to do more than just cope, because coping's wasting time to me.
Yeah, no. I mean, I think it feels like things are being stripped back. So our usual freedoms and our activities and obligations are not what they were. I mean, I'm looking at a weekend right now and there's nothing in my calendar. I mean, there's nothing there. I can't remember the last time that happened. So I think that there is an opportunity, and I think this is where you and I are probably, we're optimists. Our glass is always half full. There's always an opportunity. We'll see the best. We'll make the best. And I think that's why when you said, hey, why don't we do some stuff and offer some encouragement into the wider world to anyone it helps with, is going, if you were given for 3 or 4 months, let's just say that time window, where the people you probably in theory are meant to love most are going to be in closer proximity than they've ever been for an extended period of time. Firstly, how are you going to avoid killing each other? That'd be one. But more importantly, what would it actually look like to see it as an incredible opportunity to deepen the key covenant relationships of your life? So I'm thinking Helen and I are going to have more time than we've ever had. All the girls will be home tonight. Izzy's coming back from college. we're going to be together with no school. Megan's exams have been cancelled. Helen and I are actually sitting down thinking, well, what are we going to do to make this a time that everyone remembers and almost wishes, I wish we could go back to when the coronavirus happened, because that 3 months, 4 months together and with the people we love most, that was something where we invested intentionally in developing our relationships, first of all.
But Steve, don't you think 6 months ago, let's back up in time. 6 months ago, how many people would have begged to be able to push the pause button and just stop? Yeah. And the things they wanted to do, to grow, to spend time with family, there are many right now that would have begged to have been able to push that button 6 months ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
And now they had the button pushed for them.
Yes.
And they can't handle it, you know?
Yeah.
And so, you know, what I think, there's some things obviously we can't do. We can't go to work and have a social lunch with 30 people, and we can't go out and gather at movie theaters and entertainment places. But the people are still there. I mean, you know, the people with which we want to act with, they're not gone. We just have to figure out a new normal. And one of the things that you and I had some of the same mentors from books and speakers and in church and biblical places. But one of the things we learned early together, and you and I have explored in different facets, is, you know, we have certain bank accounts that are just, most people know about their financial bank account. Most people know about their calendar bank account. And right now we've all got, like you just said, nothing's on your calendar. So we all have time to invest. Whether we do it or not, it's a different story. But even before this time period, you and I just clung to and really valued something that we were taught, and that was understanding that the biggest, most important, most valuable asset we have was our relational capital.
Yeah.
And we can't take these moments and abandon that, because those people aren't gone.
Yeah. No. I remembered, I mean, my name may never have appeared on the book, but I was certainly one of the people who created it. So, but this idea that basically there are different types of capital, some are more valuable than others. And most of the time, as the world, we tend to invert them in value. So there's financial capital, which is basically obviously your wealth, your assets, the things, what's in your 401k, whatever it might be. You then have intellectual capital. That's your knowledge, your credentials, your expertise that people pay you money for. Your physical capital, so that's your health, your well-being, the place where you are. Then you have relational capital, which is the people that you know, where you are significant in their lives. There is depth in relationship. And then we talked about spiritual capital, the sense to which that actually that you have a life that others want to follow. And in many ways, you have that level of influence, often because of the faith, in our experience, that we have. And I think just the simple rule of thumb is that each one is 10 times more valuable than the other. Yes. So that if you are relationally rich, you are truly rich. So somebody who is all the money in the world, incredibly clever, and a body like an Adonis, obviously I'm thinking of you immediately, Curt, but has no friends or no relationships to share it with, is not rich.
No,
and
zero.
I think your point is you'll realize in the end, when your life comes to an end, nobody ever sits at the funeral and goes, well, how rich were they? How beautiful were they? Or how much intellect did they give? They'll all reflect in the end on the person that you were, the friend that you were, the father, in our case, the spouse, the business colleague. Yeah. People always remember character more than skills and money.
No question.
And they will always, those of you who have relationships will never be poor. And in some ways, it's really interesting. The digital world, I think, has only accentuated the value of relational capital over intellectual capital. Because in the old days, you had to remember lots of things. And I don't know what your memory's like now. Mine's not what it was. But Google, Siri, and Wikipedia remember pretty much everything. And everything I've forgotten, they put in an app. Yep. So relationships and relational capital, and you are incredibly rich in those things, which is why, in some ways it was nice to be able to kind of connect and go, your relationships are really the true currency of influence and true currency of wealth, I believe.
Well, I don't want us to neglect the financial and intellectual and physical capitals.
You can't.
No, you can't. No, you can't. I mean, I certainly don't want us to neglect the spiritual capital. We had a strong message across our nation this past Sunday of faith over fear. And so important. But I thought, since we don't have time to dig into all five, I mean, you and I could talk for an hour on each of the five.
Yes,
I mean, we honestly could. And the spiritual capital is obviously the most important in mine and your life. And not that we do it perfectly, but it's our goal to make that our greatest account, But what I'd love for us to just brainstorm on some ways that we can make sure that our relational capital grows and doesn't decline or dwindle during this season. And I've got some great thoughts about it, and I know you do too, but I'd love for you and I just to banter back and forth for a minute on not just talking about the concept of that relational capital, but maybe we could give some people some ideas of things they could be doing, while they're at home, and they're going to have to use technology. Not that that's going to replace a hug or a handshake. We don't want to do that right now, but start the conversation, Steve, and give somebody, if they're stuck at home, the relationships they normally see on a weekly basis have been blocked in their normal channels. How can that person start the process of maybe investing, 2 hours of their binge watching time a day or something into actually talking to humans?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so if you ask me what would I do, I think I begin with, I'm quite a strategic person. My wife is horrified that I have to be strategic with relationships, but that's the nature of my world. So I always ask the question is, which orbit does a relationship sit in? So I have, I steal all Jesus' ideas. He was better at this than we are. So who are my 3? Who are my 12? Who's the 72? Who's in the crowds?
Yeah.
And I review them every 6 months, because who am I apprenticing? Who am I coaching and investing in? There's usually a blur between the 12. And who are the people that I'm really in extended family relational network with?
Yeah.
And that's the first thing that I would say to people to do is actually take an audit of your relational capital. More importantly, which relationships are you most committed, drawn to, want to invest in an intentional way? So you may use different numbers, but think of the different orbits of going, who are the most important relationships to me right now? Who are the next most? And I usually say 3, 12, 72 is a good ballpark way of looking at it, because most of us find it, you can still have crowds beyond the 72, but most people, if you in this season of forced confinement said, I'm going to invest heavily in few, but I'm actually committed to somewhere between 50 and 70 relationships that I would love to be different, or I'd love that bank account to be richer than it is right now. So that would be my first, sadly, very strategic way of looking at it, rather than it doesn't mean they have to be people who are all incredibly wealthy and going to pay me bills. It's people that I want to go, hey, if I can come out of this 4 months where in many ways, my account for relationship is higher than it is now, who are the people I'd most love to achieve that with, and how big a priority is that relationship? Anything you want to add to make sense, or do you want to add anything to that?
I think it's totally cool that I 100% agree with your strategy, but I think different than you do.
Yeah, come on.
So although you and I are wired in some ways alike, if you depended on me for details and strategy, I mean, I'd have your back for anything, but that would be a weak backside if you depended on me for that. Yeah. But I think about, again, it goes back, I kind of use that biblical model just because it's in my brain and we know it's worked for 2,000 years. But I think about a Paul, a Timothy, and a Silas.
Come on, tell me more.
So I think about, we all need relationships that we can have as mentors. So they're people you want to connect with that can pour into you, because we all need to be filled up, with good stuff. And then I think about, we all need a Timothy, and that was Paul's illustration of he had to choose younger leaders, the up and coming under him, because we also need people we can pour into. So we need to be poured into, but we also need to pour out into others. So there's that category of relationship. And then we also all need our Barnabases, our running mates. Who are we doing life with, shoulder to shoulder? That, yes, iron sharpening iron. They're not a mentor relationship. They're not a they're not a mentee, or whatever you call when you're mentoree. I'm not sure what the word is. You can correct me with your King's English, because I know you've got it down better than I do.
Yeah, we've got a queen now, Curt, by the way. We did have a king, but that was a very unfortunate moment that I think Hamilton captured incredibly well as a musical, but we'll pass on that.
Okay. So the official English has no gender, is what you're saying. Is that right? We don't want to go there. But no, we don't. But I think it's so important that we manage those relationships. And, I know in your business, you teach and train and equip people to learn how to do these kind of things. And you've influenced me a lot, Steve, because one of the things that we're actually teaching before this happened was we were getting people to, it's a crass kind of funny thing, but it was text 100 people to start a new life conversation with, because so many people are using their thumbs instead of their voice. We wanted them to use that to start a lunch, a coffee, a face-to-face, but just to take a moment and initiate some relational conversationship just by texting and say, hey, when are you available? We got to catch up.
Yeah.
And if people just did that, if they did 10 texts a day to those, you've got your strategy, your circles, and I've got my categories.
Yeah,
but
I like your categories, by the way. I think they play together well, because I think I love the idea of combining the two to say, who are you going to reach out to and ask, would they make an investment in you? Would they be a mentor to you for 4 months while they've got more time? Because if you think, usually the people we most would like to be invested in by almost are always too busy leading lots of things. Well, I don't know anyone right now, maybe some of the political leaders and the doctors, but there's an awful lot of people out there who have more time on their calendar and who aren't traveling. I don't know how much travel time you save, but I've got nowhere to go until September. So I wonder whether one of the pieces is to say, who are the one or the two people that actually, if you said, if somebody would just invest a bit of wisdom in me, let me have a couple of conversations, share a bit of life, ask their wisdom. I reckon there may be more people out there willing to be mentors right now than perhaps there's been in the past. So that's a new one for me. I'm thinking, who could I ask whether I could actually have a bit of time with them and help them? But I think the bit about who am I pouring into, that for me is that is my life. So in that sense, I guess that's probably my default when I was thinking of numbers. But then I have the few who are the people that I run with. I think my difficulty, and probably for you too, which is I think why we get on so well, is you almost always want to run with peers who don't have to be doing the same thing you or like you, but you almost feel the relationship is an equal one. So I always say to people, my closest friends are ones where I can invest everything, all the capital I have in the world, I can invest in that relationship. They do the same back to me, and we both feel like it's a really win-win scenario. And the reality is the majority of our relationships are not like that. People at our stage of life, they're looking for us to be the leaders. But it's almost like, I think that's a great, certainly for me, helpful to go, who am I going to reach out to ask, could I have some time to get them to speak wisdom to me? Who are the people I'm investing in? But who are the people that I would either am running with and would love iron to sharpen iron? Or who are the people that actually, again, if I could actually grow some relationship with some people, who would they be? Because iron sharpens iron, or, Jeremy often says, you become the conversations of those around you. Interestingly, who are the conversations that you'd like to be part of, bearing in mind that's probably going to be digital for the time being. So, I've already learned something from you this morning, Curt, so thank you. It was worth the admission.
Well, I learn from you every time we're together. And I can honestly say, for those of you that are contemplating what Steve and I are talking about, yes, I have binged watched some TV over the last 10 days. I admit that. And some of it was fun. But I can honestly tell you this, that 2 days ago, I picked up the phone. We connected on Zoom. Steve and I got together. And that hour that he and I spent together, I would give up all 10 hours of the binge watching or whatever I'd done in terms of just how it made me feel.
Yeah. I love it.
Yeah.
That's so kind. But the thing with Giant, the world that obviously I help lead, is we identify the things people are saying and learning, and we codify them either in visuals or axioms. So when I hear you say that, I can't get away from a phrase which says we challenge leaders or people to trade up.
Yep.
So there's nothing wrong with watching Netflix, and there's nothing wrong with watching sport on TV, but there's none of that to watch anymore.
Yeah.
But what you did was you said, I'm going to intentionally trade up my Netflix series and go, I'm going to maybe watch half of that, but I'm going to take 2 or 3 of the hours, and I'm going to trade up my time to invest in relationship or invest in me. I think we were saying before, what would it look like for us as individuals to come out of this healthier, with our key relationships grown and our relational capital enhanced? Alongside, yes, we probably are going to have to watch a few, binge series because there's an awful lot to go. But I do love that trading up concept for people of going, it's not bad, but is it the best? And if you're going to decide what best is, how do you actually allocate time each day to saying, this is my investment strategy for relationships? So, you allude to it. I'm still old fashioned. I use iMessage more than WhatsApp, mainly because iMessage is a lot easier to use on my iPad and my computer than WhatsApp, which WhatsApp, if you're listening, get us a decent app that we can use on the iPad and I'll be good to go.
There you go.
I will probably send, I looked today because I knew you were going to ask me this. I send on average 25 to 50 texts a day, because every now and again I just think, okay, Curt, I've not spoken to Curt for a while, or depending on which orbit they're in, they'll get a connect. And that for me is a great way, because there's always lulls in the day where, I work on bursts of creativity, or not very often anymore. And when I'm lull, I go, who needs a word of encouragement right now?
There you go.
Who needs something from me, or who's on my heart that I can just say, hey, just thinking of you today, and have you considered this? So I realize that some of those strategies are in, but it's making them intentional so that you trade up, so that your relational capital is more when we're finished. And I like that sort of investment.
We probably need to wrap up, and we can do this again soon. But, the one thing you just said is so that, I said something that impacted you. You say something that impacts me. But the texting and reaching out to somebody, what I've learned is that God doesn't connect people for no reason. And our role in that is to connect. And then we have to let him decide what kind of fireworks and what things come out of that. But when you constantly kind of obey the relational commands we all have to live together, and you do your part in connecting, it's amazing what happens.
Yes.
Even without intention.
Yeah.
It's amazing what happens.
Yeah.
So if we wrap up today, I want to give you a couple. We can read books right now too. You don't just have to binge watch. Steve and his partner Jeremy at Giant, I bought hundreds of copies of a book they did last year called The 100X Leader. And I think a lot of what we're talking about right now is, the relationship. It's kind of, who's your Sherpa? Who are you going to be a Sherpa to? You
did read it. Thank you.
I did. Yes. And a funny out of that, it's so funny because I'm an avid hunter and outdoorsman.
Yeah.
There is a utility vehicle called a Sherpa, like a Polaris Ranger or one of these off-road vehicles. And I gave the book to one of my team leaders, and her husband works for the company that makes the Sherpa.
No way.
And it's supposed to be like the most efficient off-road vehicle in the world. And he sends me the brochure and the picture, says, I got to have one. Well, just to show you how important Sherpas are, that little bitty off-road vehicle was a large 6-figure investment. My Polaris Ranger cost $17,000. So Sherpas are highly valued, but I consider you a Sherpa in my life. Just don't send me that kind of bill, Steve.
I know. The book was a lot cheaper than that, I can guarantee. Oh, that's fantastic. I didn't know that. You see, this is the thing. We learned so much about the different types of Sherpa in the Himalayas that, they graduate to be a climbing Sherpa. And that's that's where they have permission to take people up the mountain.
Yep.
And
And
that
Steve,
bit about going, yeah.
So, you have giant, and you are making giant impacts. One of the terms y'all used in the beginning. Now it's giant worldwide. But when we post this, I'm going to tag you, and I'd love for you to type in the comments. I know y'all have a lot of free resources that people can access immediately and can be a part of their growing. And, from my perspective, I would love, to reach out and tap into people. You don't have to do what I'm doing. You don't have to do what Steve's doing, but there are definitely things you can do from home, not just to grow personally, but you wouldn't believe the entrepreneurial ventures that you could be involved in over the next 10 to 12 weeks, even if you exited back to the normal place you were before this started. There may be lives you can change and thousands of dollars you could make just by understanding that your home can be a hub. So you need to learn and grow, but let's agree we're going to be productive. And I want you to connect with 5 Voices. I'd love for you to read the 100X Leader. But I think I'll give my closing remarks and Steve can give his. Most importantly, invest in the relationships so that when you exit this, you have your relational bank account is dramatically greater than it was when you entered, and life will be different. Life will operate at a higher level for you when you come out of this, if you'll do that. And Steve, I'll let you wrap us up.
No, I think that's fantastic. I think that even if you have something practical which says, I'm going to encourage 10 people a day.
Yeah. And
that may just be a text or a WhatsApp or a message. But I think that when people are fearful, what they do is they withdraw and they start to become, they function with a scarcity mentality. And what I think we need more than anything, and this is where influence comes from with relationships, is people who actually choose to be proactive and say, I'm going to actually be someone who builds relationships. I'm going to make this negative into a positive.
Yeah.
And I think that's the bit where I really love almost to think through, what's my relational strategy for the next 4 months? Which of the relationships I want to grow? And then the last little bit for me is always ask the question is, how does that person most love to grow relational capital? So you usually need a strategy, particularly if they're in your home, to actually ask, if I'm going to grow, and I love what you said, how do my bank accounts relationships be more wealthy than when I entered the coronavirus situation? It often requires a bit of intentionality of who, when, but also what is it that means the most to them? Is it time? Is it a word of encouragement? Is it a scripture? Is it actually doing something together like we're doing? We're people who we grow relationship activity together. But that's a good little thought for you. Who do you want to grow? Who are they? How are you going to do it? And that goal, how are you going to leave this richer in one of the most valuable capitals of all at the end of this enforced quarantine? So good words, brother.
We're going to claim victory over this. The divorce attorneys and the family therapists say they're going to come out winning in this. And I say they're full of it. And I think there's so much value. And all I can say is, guys, wash your hands. See you later.
Fantastic. Yeah, bye, Curt.